Hey friends, hello and welcome to We're Not Really Here. The Champions League is back. After disappointment in Lisbon, losing to Lyon, we welcome Porto to Manchester for the opening group game of the season, taking place at the Etihad, kick-off at 8 p.m. Now, last time these two sides met, it was in the Europa League, and City won 6-1 on aggregate. And if that is sounding familiar, it is because that was the same season we went on to win the Premier League for the first time. Also, if we cast our minds further back, we also beat Porto en route to the 1970 European Cup Winners' Cup 2. So, for all those out there who say we don't have any European history, my friends, we do indeed. Hello and good evening. Welcome along to We're Not Really Here. My name is Cel Spellman. Such a pleasure to be with you for our opening group game against Porto at the Etihad Stadium, which is just over yonder. We are at the CFA, and joining me, we have quite the lineup. At the back, we have Richard Dunne. In the middle, Shaun Wright-Phillips. And to my right, Mr. Paul Dickov. That is a spine that I would love to have in any team, any day of the week, gentlemen. How are we all?
Good, yeah. Looking forward to the match. Hopefully the start of a new campaign, and hopefully this one's a successful one this time.
Of course, we don't want to dwell on it too much, but the last time we were out in the Champions League was that defeat to Lyon. How hard do you think it will be to kind of brush that aside and forget about it? Because I don't know about you, Shaun, I kind of still feel it's living in the memory slightly.
No, I think the boys just have to brush it away and get on and focus with the game they got in hand. They don't want to go into this game thinking about what happened to them last season, because then it puts negative thoughts in their minds. So for me, you can see that very positive, especially after the result on the weekend, and now they just have to build from there.
Looking at this Champions League campaign, Paul, I know we've spoke about it a bit. Do you think it requires a slight change in mindset or approach to it to kind of take off the pressure I think we all feel of wanting to win the Champions League?
Yeah, I think there will be a different mindset, and I think going back to what you said before, I think everybody felt a disappointment, from the Lyon game. But if anything, the guys will tell you that will spur them on, because they were so disappointed. Everybody was expecting us to win, and they're already talking about the semi-final that we're going to go into. So from the players' point of view, they want to put that right. But most importantly, we can't think about winning it just yet. It's a strong group that we're in. There's some good teams in there with big history. So starting Porto tonight, the main thing is when you're in group stages of any competition, it's first and foremost qualifying out the group and hopefully is first.
Do you feel, Richard, actually that's a mindset that City are quite good at kind of tapping into, is being able to forget maybe things that happened last season and focusing on game by game? Because I know that is spoken a lot from our manager, but the players seem to be on board with it as well.
Yeah, and I think players quickly move on. You have bad results, and it's part of being a footballer. It happens to you. You get knockbacks and different things like that. So the players will move on. The manager has moved on. He wants to achieve more than what we have done in previous years. And I don't think the fear of last year or the failures of last year will be in the players' heads. I think it's a case of new start, new beginning. Let's go. We've got a great chance again. We've got a squad as good as anyone. So why not? Why can't it be our year this year?
Fingers crossed. I know we're all hoping for that indeed. Well, speaking of squads, let's find out who is in the starting 11 for our opening group game against Porto at the Etihad Stadium. We have got Ederson starting in goal, Kyle Walker, Ruben Diaz and Cancelo at the back. In the middle, we have Rodri, Gundogan and Bernardo. And up front, Sterling, Aguero and Mahrez. Quite the substitutes there as well. I think a team that we've fairly all expected. Shaun, any surprises for you? I guess nice to see Gundogan back in the starting 11.
Yeah, it's very nice to see Gundogan back. I think my only surprise is not seeing further in there. I think the few times we watched him this year, he's done tremendous. So I just found it a bit strange that he hasn't featured in the last two.
I mean, Garcia's coming into, I'm assuming, you could never quite know with Pep, the centre-back role with Diaz. There must be a lot of trust there from Pep in Garcia when you've got Fernandinho on the bench, Richard.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. Fernandinho's being almost used in that position, and it's not where he plays, And when he does play and he plays that number 6 role, he's the best at it. And I think City miss him when he's not in that role. I know he's not tonight, but in terms of centre half, it's best off always to have specialised defenders in the right positions and playing as they do. I think Diaz has come in, he's done really well. Aki's actually done quite well since he's come in as well, and you sort of think, well, instead of changing it week in, week out, try and build partnerships. And I know Laporte's not available tonight, but probably Ake and Diaz will be a partnership going forward.
Off that, actually, do you think in a way that could be something that works in our favour, Paul, with the injuries, where it kind of forces Pep hand a little bit to play the same players a little bit more regularly rather than chopping and changing as we used to see in?
Yeah, I think it does, but I think the team tonight, I think, and we've seen already the games earlier on the season that without having a full pre-season behind them, that Pep will rotate the players just to get the match fitness in and get minutes under their belt. I'm slightly surprised Eric has played tonight, because I thought, as Dunne said there, I thought Ake and Diaz looked really good. I thought Kyle Walker was excellent, playing the right side of a 3 or a 4 or whatever it was. I was doing the game on Saturday and I tried to write the formation down and I had to scrumple up and chuck it away once the game had started, because I think all you could make out of the formation was Ederson in goal and everybody else. So I think we'll probably see that tonight. And possibly with that back 3 with Cancelo dropping in at times to have a back 4, and Bernardo Silva was fantastic at the weekend as well. Playing from slightly deeper as well. So maybe that's something we'll see more of.
We are going to be focusing on Bernardo and a couple of other players as well, but I think we will have to mention Sergio Aguero. Of course, we were aware that with injuries we were maybe looking to delap, but so great to see him back. Shaun, were you surprised to kind of see him really pick up where he left off in the Arsenal game?
No, I wasn't. I feel like you know what you're going to get with Serge. I think I'm really happy to see him playing against, as Dickie said, that the players need to get minutes under their belt, especially with him being injured from last year. So to see him back on the sheet again, and just hoping he notches a goal today to set him on his road rate, basically.
He is a man that knows Porto very well. Last time out in 2012, he scored twice, one in the opening minute, and I think the second was in that return leg when we clinched a 2-1 victory. And some really interesting facts actually about Aguero, because he is not far away from joining the top 10 goal scorers in the Champions League competition of all time. Paul, I've been trying to find the best way to phrase this question, but we know what Aguero brings to the team in terms of ability and in terms of goals. But as far as shape, it's one thing that I noticed. The false 9 worked the odd time, but not having a focal point seemed to kind of confuse us a little bit. What does having that striker there do for the players around him and also the shape of the team?
I think having an out-and-out number 9, especially somebody like Sergio Aguero, not just for Manchester City, but puts the fear of God into other teams as well. Sometimes when you play with a false 9, Dunne will probably tell you better, as a centre-back, you're happy seeing everything in front of you, but Sergio's movement, whether he's coming short or playing in the shoulder, getting in behind, and even the first few games of the season, the Wolves game, the first 25 minutes against Leicester, the Leeds game, the amount of chances we created, and we really did miss that out-and-out centre-forward, miss Sergio Aguero. He probably would have got a couple of goals in each of the games. So the fact that he's back and was back on Saturday, got 65 minutes, was massive. I think, history tells us with Sergio that it usually takes him 2 or 3 games after he's been out to get back into his stride. But getting the 65, I thought he looked sharp Saturday without necessarily getting the chances that we'd created before. But against a Porto team tonight, with the team that we've got out there and the creativity we've got, I'm sure he'll get his goals.
And looking back at that game at the weekend, Richard, it was a clean sheet and what was quite an assured defensive display, something that I know that City fans, I think, have been looking for. How much of that do you put down to Ruben Diaz?
Yeah, I think when you watch him, you can see the sort of almost the head that he's got. He's got a defensive head on him. He wants clean sheets and he wants to organise people. And I think having that in the team is very important for City. I think obviously when Vincent Kompany was leading the back line, he was someone focused totally on clean sheets, on organisation, and we've probably lost that over the last 18 months or so. So having him back in is great, and I think he'll be the sort of mainstay for a while now. He'll be someone that we want to see attacking football, which is always with City games, but there is games like on Saturday against Arsenal. You have to grind them out sometimes, and I think that's what we've failed to do probably over the last few years. We conceded a goal and then go and try and attack and maybe concede another one. So having that surety at the back and being able to win games 1-0 is a great asset for the team.
I think as well that's so important, I guess, coming into the Champions League, Shaun, because as we know there is no weak opponent, and there's not going to be the free scoring games maybe we've been used to seeing in the Premier League or the League Cup. Grinding out those results, I guess it's not just all about ability, mentality is a big part of that as well.
Yeah, most definitely. I think the guys will tell you to be a good team, you have to be able to win ugly as well. And I think I wouldn't say necessarily on the weekend the game was ugly, but we didn't get to play the football and attack the way we wanted to, and we had to find another way to win. And as Dunne said, we grinded out the result for 1-0 and managed to keep a clean sheet.
Looking to our opponents tonight that come in the shape of Porto. Now, they are no strangers to the Champions League. Only Barcelona and Real Madrid have qualified more times for the Champions League, which I think just goes to show just what we were saying there. There is no weak team, although their record away to English teams doesn't fare too well. I think they have lost their last 6 out of 7 trips to English teams away. Do you think about that, Paul, as a player? Are you aware of that, or are you just focusing on the team that kind of walks out that tunnel?
No, as a Man City player, they won't be focusing on that. They'll know what they've got to do. They'll know that they're superior without being too big-headed about it. They'll know they'll have the better squad, and if they play the way they can play, that it won't matter to me. If Manchester City play as well, no, they can. It won't matter to me how Porto play tonight, because we'll be too strong for them. But from a Porto's point of view, I think if you're used to losing in away games, I think sometimes that does eat away at the back of your head. You know, as much as they'll be saying it's previous campaigns, it's previous seasons, you know, that they'll know coming here tonight that the record's not great coming to England, and especially up against a strong Manchester City side.
There's a player in that Porto team who seems to have been around for a long time. Comes in the form of Pepe. Richard, we were speaking before, but I think he's about 37 or 38. But still seems to be kind of playing at the top of his game. I guess going to be very influential tonight for that Porto team.
Yeah, he's hugely experienced. He knows how to play the game. He's probably annoying to watch, actually, sometimes. You know, he's diving around and cheating, it looks like sometimes. So, but he's experienced. He's been there. He's done everything, and he's someone that will certainly he knows how to win games like this, how to win difficult away games, and. A defence led by him you would imagine, will be strong. I think they obviously lost their left back recently to Man United, so they've had to fill in that position. But as a side, Porto are always technically really good and strong, and yeah, having people like Pepe, that leadership in the side is great.
Really looking forward to seeing that battle between Aguero and Pepe. And before we take a look at our group, let's hear what our manager Pep Guardiola had to say ahead of tonight's game against Porto.
Good to see you. New season in the Champions League, new challenge. It goes without saying, but how important is it to get off to a good start, even without the fans here to support
All the
you?
teams want a good start, especially the home games. But every club in the Champions League want to start good, yeah. But there are 6 games.
Of course there are, exactly. There are 2 changes today to the team. You've got Gundogan in and Garcia. Foden and Aki out. Is there any particular reason why you've made those changes? Anything tactical about that?
No, it was Nathan had an Eagles this morning. The groin was not fully fit, and Gundogan, we decided for him.
You threw up some defensive surprises against Arsenal the other day. Are you more likely to go to a traditional back 4 today?
We will win, will be a good decision. When we lose, will be bad decisions. But normally going to play everyone in his position, yeah.
Sergio starts today. How important is it to manage his time as well, considering he's come back from injury?
Of course, it's important. Everyone is important. So on Thursday, on Friday, maybe come back to players more start to training, like Kevin and Laporte. Still a little bit longer, Gabriel, and yeah, step by step, the people is coming back, and hopefully the people that is fit not get back, not get injured. So yeah, I think all the teams are struggling about the COVID situations and injuries for the lack of preparation. So every manager, every club, every team are handling as best as possible the situations that we are living in all around the world.
Yeah, and there are some Portuguese players in your side. Have they been giving you any extra information about the opposition today?
Yeah, we spoke, especially with Ruben. Ruben knows them quite well. We play many times about particular things, but no special. So yeah, but every info, any info is more than welcome.
Of course.
Yeah.
Good luck today.
Thank
See
you.
you later.
Thank you.
That is Pep Guardiola speaking ahead of tonight's clash against Porto. And something he mentioned there, and Shaun, I'm going to come to you on this. Of course, Ruben Diaz was a player that knows Porto very well, having played for Benfica. As a player, when you're coming up against teams that you played for, does that become a real thing where the manager comes to you and other players, and are you kind of going, listen, he doesn't like it if you take it on the outside. If you drop and go, he's never going to track you. Or does it constantly change that it doesn't make a difference?
No, it's always good that obviously if you've played there before and you know the players and you know their weak spots, to be able to pass that information on. But I feel like ultimately he already has a plan of the way he wants to play. I think the players come with that information kind of enhances what he wants to do and maybe finds a little weak area that he might want to attack.
I'm going to ask the question that I really wanted to ask. When you were playing for Chelsea, did you give them bad intel on Manchester City or good intel?
I just basically said I spoke to no one.
But of that, and it's really glad it was mentioned in the interview because compared to the team that took on Porto in 2012, it's a very different Manchester City team that actually have a lot of kind of friends on the Porto team. You've got Pepe, of course, who'll know Bernardo and Ruben Diaz. I think we've got Felipe Anderson, who'll know Jesus and who'll know Fernandinho. When you were playing, did it become a kind of little thing of trying to outthink your opponent who you knew so well, especially if you're international teammates, Paul?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I remember playing against the big man a couple of times, and I used to always go and stand another centre half to try and get away from him. When I did go anywhere near him, he would tell me to shoo off and go back on the other centre half again. But it's look, when you're playing in the games, you know, you see your ex-teammates, your international teammates before the game. You'll have a chat, you'll have a laugh with them because you're their friends. But once you go out there, you want to win the game. You know that friendship goes out the window, and you know, I'm sure we'll see that tonight. If anything. You might try that a little bit harder because you want to get one over in your mate.
Did you always want to have one over on Dickie when he was coming near on the football pitch, Richard?
Exactly like he says. That's what you want to do. You want to win. I mean, you're all mates and chatting away before the game and after the game. But for 90 minutes, you're doing what you do. You know, you're playing for your team and you want to win games. And it'll be the same tonight. The lads will know each other inside out, and they'll be great friends now, maybe chatting away, and then there will be afterwards. But for that, once the game's on, and that's it. There's no mates really on the opposition team.
Just how we like it. Let's look at our group then. Of course, we are joined by Porto, we're joined by Marseille and Olympiacos. There's been a lot of conversations around it. Shaun, is that an easier group for you, or not so easy as some people are making out, do you think?
I wouldn't necessarily say any group in the Champions League is easy. I think people get misled with the fact that they're playing in certain leagues means they're maybe not as good as your Real Madrids or your Barcelonas. But at the end of the day, to get in the Champions League, you have to be a good team. It just depends whether they play well on that day. So for me, if we don't have our wits about us and play the way everybody knows we can play, it will be a tough group.
Now, I know this might be a tiny thing, Paul, but we've been used to having some long journeys in the Champions League in the past. I feel what's quite nice about this is they are all quite a little bit closer than previous teams. Does that make a difference? I guess, especially with a congested fixture list, having to do shorter trips rather than longer trips in the middle of the week?
Yeah, I think Pep will be delighted with the group, you know, but as Shaun said, you don't get into the group stages of the Champions League if you're not a good team. But I think the travel aspect, you know, I think we've been in Donetsk in the last few years, but with, you know, as I said before, the lack of pre-season that they've had, the congested fixture list, you know, usually there's a couple of weeks, 3 weeks sometimes between Champions League games, and you know, I think they're all going to come back to back with the Premier League as well. So without taking that travel out of it will be a big bonus, as in preparing for the game and recovery after the Champions League games, getting ready for the Premier League at the weekend, you know, because you know, theoretically we could have had an away trip to Donetsk tonight, and then we've got a 12:30 kick-off against West Ham. So that time that they can recover in between the games will be massive for them.
Yeah, definitely, especially after that lack of pre-season, like you say. And we are all well aware, of course, they would have been some great places for us all to visit on our away trips this season. But don't worry, We're Not Really Here is going to bring you as close to those games as possible. And we will be back travelling soon. Don't worry. Richard, I know you kind of know a little bit about the French league. Marseille? Are they going to prove quite a threat, do you think, when they come to the Etihad and we have to go over there to France?
They've improved a lot in the last, 18 months. They've had a victory this year against PSG in Paris, which hasn't happened for 20 years or something like that. So they have some really good players, and they've got a freedom about how they play. But like a lot of sort of that level team, because the Premier League is a level above. The French League is probably not so. Marseille have a slight inconsistency about them, but on their day they can cause trouble, and you can guarantee their day will be Champions League nights. That's what they'll be looking forward to. That's what they've been trying to get into for the last while. So once those big games come around, they'll be ready for them, and they will be a test on the night.
That's such a good point, actually, because I mean, I think we are very fortunate that we have one of the best, most competitive leagues, which maybe you wouldn't find so much in League One, or maybe say over in Greece. So that does become a thing, I guess, for the European teams, that this competition becomes their be-all and everything, rather than where we're focusing on forced competitions, I guess, Richard.
Yeah, and we've seen it last year with Lyon. Lyon's a really good side. They got to the semi-final of the Champions League, but they're not even in Europe this year because they put all their focus into succeeding in the Champions League, trying to get far, and they ended up, I know the league got curtailed early and they were 7th or 8th or something in the league, you know, but for them, their big games, their big nights was Champions League nights, and that's what you'll probably see with Marseille, and possibly tonight with Porto. I mean, Porto always have a chance of winning their league, but tonight will be a huge game for them.
Another place that we would love to have gone, of course, is over to Olympiacos. We can't, but I know that's kind of one of those places that's always known for quite a hostile atmosphere. Do you think, given that there are no fans in the stadium, then Shaun, say at Olympiacos, that is going to kind of work in our favour, but actually maybe for the other teams in the group as well?
I have to go back to, like Dickie said, I just think as long as City play well and play to that potential that everybody knows, I don't think it would make much a difference whether it was hostile or not hostile. If they go out and perform and do their job, then it's up to Olympiacos to do theirs, really.
Thank you, Shaun. Sorry, Paul, did you want to...
No, I was just going to... I think it'll be a hindrance for Olympiacos, Porto and Marseille not having fans in the stadium, because Dunne will tell you, Marseille fans are very, very passionate and get behind the team, and you know, when you're playing one of the big hitters in Europe like Manchester City, that can give you that extra level. We all know about Olympiacos and how passionate their fans are, and Porto, so maybe they would have been relying on the home games against Man City for the fans to give them that extra little bit, but they're not going to have that.
They've also, in France, they've been used to having fans back in the stadium. This season they've had up to 5,000 or 6,000 or something allowed into the stadium, so for them it'll be strange again, coming back into an empty one and playing in that sort of situation. But certainly the fans would have made a difference, I think, in Marseille, because they are, I think he says, the hostile.
They are. Okay, well, that's good for us then. And actually, I wanted to ask you a bigger question off that, because obviously, start of the season, we've seen some unbelievable scorelines, one being 7-2. If anyone's just going to throw that one out there. 5-1 was another big one. 6-1, sorry, another big one.
It could have been more than 7-2, by the way.
It could have, couldn't it, Shaun? It really could have. But, I mean, I think there's a few things for that. Do you think one of those things is, though, that it is kind of empty stadiums? Because is there a thing of where the fans keep you more true, Shaun? So maybe when you are needing to solidify or you need to get that tackle, the fans will help you kind of bring that little bit of calm or that little bit of extra push than you need?
I think at Anfield, I can kind of say I think that could have made a difference. I don't think they would have gone there and been able to do what they're doing because of stadiums like the Kop is so powerful. Like the guys will tell you, it's so noisy there. The fans are really good. But then after seeing the way that they obviously played in previous games with the high line, I didn't expect it to be like 7-2, but I expected them to get beat at some point because the line's so high. So I think in some areas, I think the crowd does play a massive part.
Okay, we are going to cast our mind back to the last time we saw City play, which was in that 1-0 win against Arsenal. We've got some highlights here and some expert punditry and commentary from Mr. Shaun. Go to have a look at this.
Cancelo's chopped him up, he's diced him up. How do you like your sautéed onions? he's really cut him up.
Manchester City return from the international break with one of the biggest tests of the season ahead. They take on Arsenal at the Etihad this afternoon.
I'm excited. We have got Shaun Wright-Phillips and Shaun Go to the two Shauns.
Shaun right.
There's only one Shaun Go to.
4 changes since the last game against Leeds, the main one being the return of the main man, Sergio Aguero.
We've had the false 9, but now we've got the real 10. That's what we got today.
Here is Mahrez, curling effort from him, just wide. City starting as they mean to go on.
I think we'll watch a good game, like we have seen so far in all the games in the Premier League.
It's Aguero with options available to him. One to his left, one to his right. He plays to Foden. Foden goes inside. Foden strikes. Here comes the rebound and here comes the goal from Raheem Sterling.
Keepers get told all the time not to parry anything out there, but Raheem was in the right place, and it's a great finish on his weak foot amongst all those bodies.
It's a nice feeling to put on the captain's armband today and to cap it off with a goal. It's a brilliant feeling.
Been quite an even game as well, so it's just good to get in the lead, in control, and let's see what happens.
Here's an opportunity for Foden. Saved by Leno. Tierney's broken into the box here. Here's Saka. Saka will get this back. Edison with the save, and it spins out. Perhaps the closest Arsenal have got to an equaliser.
Edison actually stepped up and ensured that he got a few world-class saves in there. It's so important to have a keeper that can do that.
Addison comes out really quick, narrows the angle, and he gets something on it. That's brilliant goalkeeping there by Addison.
Here's the change. Sergio Aguero lasts 64 minutes. Well, he wanted an applause. There's no fans in attendance, but the City bench more than obliging. Cancelo keeps going.
Cancelo has chopped him up, he's diced him up. How do you like your sauteed onions? he's really cut him up. But when he's flashed that across the box.
David Luiz nearly scores an own goal. When Diaz across with the header. Great solid performance from him tonight.
I love to win, and that's the thing you most need to know about me.
And it's all over. Manchester City return to winning ways with a 1-0 triumph against Arsenal.
We're still a little bit away for our best performance, but today our victory helped us a lot. And yeah, good 3 points against an impressive opponent.
Our next opponents are Porto in the Champions League. Fingers crossed we can make it another win and keep building some momentum. That was some highlights there from our 1-0 win against Arsenal, and also some of the fun we get up to when we're not really here, which is why you'll want to be tuning in every week. Cheesy plug done. Let me get back into this conversation where I'm joined by Paul Dickov, Richard Dunne and Shaun Wright-Phillips. If you've just tuned in, thank you so much for joining us. First of all, Paul, will you be using any sautéed onions references in your punditry tonight at all?
Definitely no sautéed onions coming out from me tonight. Yeah, I'll save that to the goat. He's been eating all the onions by the size of them, by the looks of it, by the way.
Maybe Shaun needs a few. One thing that we didn't mention on the show, actually, which I wanted to pick up on, was, of course, that Sterling having the captain's armband, Richard. And it seems to be that kind of similarly to Kevin De Bruyne, but they've almost taken a step up in kind of, cementing their place in the City team and in the dressing room, I guess.
Yeah, and it's just the next step in his progression. I think since he's come into the club, he's been brilliant. He was never the finished article when he came in, but he had places to go and more within him. And I think Pep's got it out of him over the last few years. He's got more goals. He's more involved in the team play. And I think being a captain is the next in line for him. And he leads both on and off the pitch. The way he speaks when he's speaking to the press or whatever, or different things that he leads, he seems like a really good character and someone that the players would follow. They would listen to him and respect what he has to say.
I know this might seem like a bit of an obvious question, Paul, but when if you're given a team captain the armband, does that psychologically make a big difference to how you're going to go about your, like you say, your day-to-day behind the scenes, but also what you're doing on the pitch?
Yeah, it does, because it's a huge honour. I was never a regular captain, but whenever I got the armband, it did give you that lift, and you felt that you needed to take more responsibility in your performance, not just for yourself, but as a team. Dunne is a fantastic captain for us for years and years and years, and but with Raheem, you don't always, and I think you've spoke about it before, Kel, you don't always have to be a shouter and a baller to be a captain. Yeah. There's this perception that if you shout the loudest, you're a fantastic captain. That doesn't always work, But Raheem leads by example, and as a captain by how he plays with and without the ball and off the pitch, as Dunne said before as well. But how people talk about the goals and the goals he scores and how he creates. But if you look at the press that Manchester City want to have in the high press, 9 times out of 10 it's Raheem that sets that off. So he's already leading by example, and Pep knows that, and the players obviously respect him, and that's why he's got the armband.
It's a position that you know well, of course, Shaun. I was wondering, is there a particular part of Raheem Sterling's game that is your favourite, or is something that makes you go, I mean, that is just pure class?
I think for me it's his transition. If you watch him closely, like over the years, you can see he doesn't dribble as much, Before he was always going at people and taking them to the line. Now he seems to play the ball and move more, and he's positioning to getting on the end of things like crosses, and his finishing has got a lot better.
On that, actually, the positioning, because for the goal, if you actually put your player cam, I call it, when you get to, you're just focusing on one player, his run starts back at the halfway line. Again, obvious question, Shaun, but how do you train good movement and good timing? Because that's something that I've heard mentioned around Sterling quite a lot over the last 2 years, but I never quite know what it means or what it entails.
I think Dickie can test to it after, but I think people think you have to do like loads of trickery in the box to find space, whereas I find the subtle movements and the movements that are playing like you're not paying too much attention to what's going on seem to work. Like in that instance, you see Raz, when he does get into the box, he takes maybe 2 steps forward and then just checks back. Because after the defender sees him, I feel like the defender then needs to see where the ball is. So he loses track of him, and the ball just, not luckily, but the keeper parries it into a bad area, and Raheem's there to tap it in.
In all the space. You echo that,
it is, and the one thing about Raheem that has brought to his game the goals in the last 3 seasons is he plays between the goalposts. If you look at him before, even when he was at Liverpool when he first came here, when the ball was going in the box, it was always outside, sometimes at the far end of the 6-yard box. Now, as soon as the ball goes in the box, he's making sure that he's within the width of the goal. So if the ball does come to him and he shoots, or like we've seen there, when it rebounds out, he's there as well. And you don't always need to have fantastic movement by going 5 or 6 steps. Sometimes it's just 1 or 2 and being sharp up there and anticipating where the ball's going to go, which he hadn't done before. He was missing a lot of his chances 3-4 years ago, probably 4 yards out the back post, and he's trying to come in. Now he's in there all the time, and that only comes from working in the training ground and having the confidence of doing that.
And I guess, and also as well, that kind of comfortability of being in those positions, because I feel like that you always felt that he was a little bit nervous picking up the ball in that final third, whereas now that seems to have gone.
And sometimes you have to expect your teammate to miss, so you're in that position to score the goal, or you have to anticipate and expect the defender to make a mistake, so you're there to capitalise it. Whereas before, I think maybe he was on his heels a little bit more, waiting for things to happen. Now he's on his toes, and when the ball's bouncing around the 6-7 yards out, he's the first one on it.
Richard, for a defender, how do you go about defending against that? It must be one of the most annoying things, is to have these players chopping and changing and moving all over the place, and you can't quite pinpoint where they're going to be.
No, and it's like what Shaun says, as a defender, if I'm watching the centre forward or player coming into the box, you can have a look and think, right, I've got him, and then that's when they make their move. As soon as I turn my shoulders to look then at the football, they've moved again, and that's what the good strikers do. They're never following the trajectory where he should just run here and then I'm safe. But they'll move and they do different things. And I think certainly for someone like Sterling, they'll go off like a law of averages probably and say, well, if he stands in that position on the far side of the post, he's probably going to miss a lot of goals. But if he gets into them areas like he did on the weekend, that's where the ball's going to drop. So if it didn't drop, or it doesn't drop in that game, it will. Over the course of the season, he'll get 10, 15 goals just by being in that one place that they will have identified as a goal-scoring zone almost.
Moving from one end of the pitch to the other, a player that I don't think we've spoken about enough actually on We're Not Really Here, and we're going to do it today. It is that man, Ederson, with that clean sheet against Arsenal. That put him on 53 clean sheets in the Premier League since his debut in August 2017. That's 15 more than any other goalkeeper in this time. Paul, where does Ederson rank for you among City keepers, and how key has he been to the way we see City play now?
Look, he's got to be up there with one of the best. Obviously, Joe Hart was phenomenal in the seasons that they won the Premier League and kept us in so many games, even in the Champions League campaigns. But Ederson, for me, and how Pep wants to play, he's the perfect goalkeeper, and he's the best in the world for me at doing what Pep wants him to do. We all know how good he is with the ball at his feet. I keep joking he would probably keep me out of the team as a centre forward. He's that good with the ball at his feet. But he makes big saves at big times that doesn't always get noticed. We've seen that on Saturday at 1-0. From Saka, he makes a great save, then comes out and makes himself big. Mm-hmm. People always, because City are that good going forward football-wise, he makes the best keepers in the world make one or two saves a game, and they're always big saves that keep them in the game. And we've seen it this 2 seasons we won the Premier League, the amount of times we were dominating and it's 1-0, we're dominating, a team breaks on us and he makes a big save again, and his concentration levels are fantastic. And he's only 25, 26, and they say goalkeepers don't mature till they're in their 30s, and for me he's up there as one of the best goalkeepers in the world already.
Do you think, Shaun, with someone like Ederson, that is it fair to say that he's almost changed how goalkeepers play in the Premier League? Because I've noticed goalkeepers now have started to try and play it more out from the back, and the defenders are incorporating them more. Do you think that has stemmed from Ederson coming in?
Yeah, most definitely. I think he started something now that goes down to some teams' academies. Like, I went to watch Blackburn in the Youth Cup last year, and that 16-year-old was playing exactly the same way Ederson was. But before that, no keeper would dare, and no manager would dare to let that keeper do it. But I think if you have a keeper with the ability at their feet, like Ederson, then I don't think it's a problem, because he's not going to lose the ball, and he's comfortable enough to play in tight areas that beats the press, which then puts us in a better position.
I guess I
think as well as sort of improving goalkeepers and changing how goalkeepers play, I think he's killed a lot of them as well. Because a lot of managers want to play like that, but the goalkeepers aren't good enough with the ball at their feet to do it.
I guess as well, Richard, then for the central defenders, knowing you've got a keeper like Ederson, not just ball at his feet ability, but shot-stopping ability, that changes then your mindset as a defender, because I guess there's a calmness to know if it was to go behind me, there is someone there who can stop the ball going in the back of the net.
Yeah, it's great when you have someone behind you that you trust and you believe in, and you think, well, Steve, I don't want to make a mistake, but if I make a mistake, I know that I've got someone there who's got a great chance of stopping it. And I think with Diaz coming into the team as well, someone who's again defensive minded, he'll look at Ederson and think, brilliant, I've got someone who wants to keep clean sheets as well. And that's then starting to build a great sort of foundation for the team, because alone with them two, I think is great. Add in Laporte as well, and they've got a great little triangle in that area that is as strong as that in the Premier League, and possibly as strong as that in Europe.
I mean, I guess as well that's something that we've missed, Paul. I think that we've not been able to say a sentence like that, Richard. I think for the last couple of seasons, it would be fair to say. Do you think?
Yeah, it is, and I think Diaz has started. I think it was immense at the weekend. Considering it was his first home game, and hopefully, alongside Aki at the week after, who's been very good since he came in. But like Richard said there, that defensive partnership of him and Laporte, I think, could be one of the best. There's no secret that we've missed Laporte when he's been out, especially last season. But now there's top competition for places in that position. Laporte's not been available. Aki came in at the weekend. I know Garcia's there tonight as well. But I think going forward, the Pep's obviously looking at that little triangle of Ederson, then Diaz and Laporte has been the mainstay of the team.
Final question on Diaz, Rich, and it's such a small one, but I think in the Arsenal game he played on that left side of the centre defence. Is that massively different to playing on the right side? I know Pep's very much about having a right footer and left footer, but is there much of a difference between that kind of fractional position move?
Defensively, when you're defending, it's all right, because you're focused on the ball and you know your sort of angles. But when you're trying to play out, it is different, because you tend to cut back onto your right hand side and play the ball back into your goalie or back across to your centre half. And I think with Laporte in the team, you have the opportunity to open up and drive down the left hand side, and if it doesn't work, then you come out with Diaz on the right hand side, and it's great like that. So it does take a little bit of extra concentration when you've changed sides, but defensively for someone at his standard, it won't make much of a difference.
We're now going to move back to the other end of the pitch, and we touched upon him at the start of the show, but it is our star striker Sergio Aguero, who is not far away from entering the top 10 all-time goal scorers in the Champions League. I mean, Shaun, I know we've said that we want to focus on to the group games for now, but for someone who's had the career he has had at Manchester City, how much do you think he will want to kind of add that Champions League medal to his cabinet, I guess, and how hard will he be working to make that happen?
I think, first of all, who wouldn't? I would. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, of course, he'll be dying to win it, but like Dickie said, I don't think they're thinking that far ahead. I think they're just going to take game by game and try and play well in all of them, and no doubt he's going to want to try and score in as many of those as he possibly can.
How do you think he's changed his game under Pep. I mean, obviously, we've always known him to be scoring goals non-stop, but I do feel he does things slightly different and has done over these last 4 or 5 years to what we've been used to seeing. Do you think it is just his running, or is it other things as well, Shaun?
No, I would say it's just more of the pressing aspect, because before Pep, nobody really pressed like that in England. So when a new manager comes in, you want to do what the new manager wants, and he had to change his game, and he's done it, and he still managed to play the same and score as many goals as we're all used to seeing him do. So that's a great testament to him.
And along with Fernandinho, Paul, he's kind of one of, I mean, of course, our senior players, but one of those with the European pedigree and has done for the last 10 years. How important is that, not just in any team, but particularly in City's team, where I think now we've kind of got a few of those younger players who have only maybe had 3 or 4 years playing in the Champions League?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost for him to be able to break into the top 10 Champions League goal scorers, when you think of the players and the teams that have went all the way in all the competitions, you know, all the big clubs, it just shows you how good he is and phenomenal record. And as in his style of play changing, you know, it really used to annoy me when Pep first came in and people were saying that Sergio Aguero couldn't play in a Pep team, and it was a massive bugbear of mine because he'd never been asked to do that. Mm-hmm. You know, and you don't know if somebody can do it or not until they're asked to do it, you know, under Mancini and under Pellegrini. Aguero was the 9, and I'm not saying his movement's fantastic, but he just had to stand there and score the goals. Yeah. To simplify it, he'd never been asked to do that before, you know, and for people to say that he couldn't do it was a nonsense for me, because he can't do it unless you've tried to do it, and he's shown that he can do it. I think he's shown that he's got better at it, and he's probably, I don't know the ratios for goals, but his goals are, since Pep's come in, has probably been the same, playing in a different style. So it was never for me that he couldn't do it. It was just that he'd never been asked to do it, and he's one of the best strikers that we've ever seen.
And one of the best players I've seen at Manchester City as well, along with these 3 fine gentlemen here.
I was just about to say thanks.
No, don't cut me off. Shaun goes to me as well at the start of the show. He's like, "Kel, you're always buzzing." I was like, obviously, like, look at who I'm sat with. On Aguero, final word, Richard. How do you stop him? Can you?
Not easily, no. He's it's like, I was coaching some kids recently, and one of them was a centre forward, and he was saying, how do I improve? And I showed him a video of Aguero from 2 or 3 years ago, and he scored 40 odd goals, and I think 36 of them were 1 or 2 touch. You know, so he's just been in the right area, and he takes it and he finishes it. He doesn't mess around. He doesn't try and turn people inside out. He has a job in the team and has to score goals, and that's what he does. And I don't think, certainly in the last 10 years in the Premier League, there's been anyone who's nowhere near him. You know, and I think he's been unfortunate in terms of the injuries that he's had and the games that he's missed, but probably for all-time Premier League, he must be considered in the top 2 or 3 as the best strikers that's been in it.
I would absolutely have to agree with that. I think that's a sentiment we all share here.
And said he was the best apart from Shearer.
Apart from Shearer himself, yeah. And you know what is as well? I've seen a number of centre halves, Van Dijk being one of them. I think Terry's also said it. Hardest player that they've come up against in the Premier League, Sergio Aguero. Which says everything.
I think it's down to the fact that he doesn't take 3 or 4 touches. As a defender, you want someone to take a touch, take another touch, and then you can get a tackle in. If the ball's in the back of the net before you can react, you've got no chance.
No chance.
And I think with a lot of strikers that they score trademark goals. You know, you sort of they score a goal, you'll say, "Oh, that was a typical goal from him." He scores, you know, it's head, it's outside the box, it's inside the box, it's right foot, it's left foot. You know, so it must have been and still is a nightmare to play against, because you don't know. You know, if you shuffle him as a defender onto his right foot, he can check in and score with his left. He scores tap-ins, he scores all sorts of goals.
And I think also people don't acknowledge that if you kick him, he just comes back. Like, there's some strikers that if you kick them, they will kind of move out of your space or thing, but he'll just keep coming and he'll just want more and more and to try and score.
I think as well, actually, and something I remember that you have an abundance of as well, Shaun, if you don't mind me saying, was that low centre of gravity, which not only kicking, but then it seems you can ride that.
Dicky had it as well, because he ain't that tall.
No. But even that in itself, I mean, that's not something, I guess that gives you a kind of strength and a ground in that the ball sticks to your foot as well as you stick to the pitch in a way, Paul, I guess.
That's and you've got to play to the strength. The only difference between me and Shaun, apart from me being a bit taller, was that we used to call them like Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. He used to sort of hit the ground and he was made of rubber and we used to bounce straight back up again. But look, when you are of the shorter kinds, should we put it politely, and obviously Sergio's as well, and you've got that low centre of gravity, you've got to use it to your advantage, especially when you're playing against 6'2", 6'3" centre halves, because if you try and compete with them physically, and you're going to lose out, so you need to use that little bit of sharpness that you've got, low centre of gravity, to your advantage.
Absolutely. If you've just tuned in, thank you so much thank you so much for joining us. My name is Cel Spellman. This is We're Not Really Here, and we are getting our thoughts ahead of our opening group game against Porto. 8 p.m. kickoff at the Etihad Stadium. Joining me has been Shaun Wright-Phillips, Paul Dickov and Richard Dunne. If you have just tuned in, you'll probably want to know the team news, and we can bring it to you now. So starting in net, we have Ederson, Walker, Diaz, Cancelo and Eric Garcia in the midfield. We have Gundogan, Rodri and Bernardo Silva, and our front three of Sterling, Mahrez and Aguero, and an abundance of experience and youth on the bench. The bench, I think, is becoming more and more important in these games, Shaun, and there actually does seem to be that nice mix of old and young. But, I mean, a player that I maybe would like to see a little bit more of is Torres. I guess you think he might make it onto the pitch tonight?
Yeah, I hope he will do. I think it was the Burnley game. I think he did pretty well, but I think sometimes people forget that when foreigners come over, it's not a lot of them that kind of just set in and hit the ground running. So I think we've got to give him time, and I think he's got to break his way in. And plus, you've got to remember, he's fighting for a place behind people like Mahrez, Sterling. That we've got some great players. So you also have to earn the right to play.
And also looking at the young players on the bench, Paul, I mean, it's kind of become a normal thing that for City now, but for those young players, and I know you work quite a lot with young people, I guess that's everything, not just being on the bench in the Premier League game, but being on the bench in a Champions League game, different ball game.
Yeah, it's massive for them. There's a number of them coming through. I've already seen Cole Palmer, Liam Delap joining likes of Tommy Doyle, Taylor, obviously Phil Foden's the one that we all talk about. But just being part of this squad with the quality that's in it is going to bring them on so much. I was so fortunate as a younger player to be at an Arsenal team that was with so much talent, and obviously Sean's dad sticks out like a sore thumb. He was fantastic for me, and you can tell the senior players in the squad really want to help the younger players that are coming through, and it's fantastic for the academy here. There was a lot of sort of stick aimed at the club sort of 4 or 5 years ago about going out and buying players and not bringing their own through, but the academy's only been here like 8, 9, 10 years, and that was never going to happen overnight. It was always going to take 5, 6, 7 years for it to happen, and you're seeing the benefits of it now with the amount of young players that are in the squad, in and around the squad, the players that are on the bench tonight, and the next sort of age groups that are coming through lower down as well, are going to be just as good, if not better.
So funny as well, I remember doing some reading into this, and even before we built the CFA, I actually think of City developing first team players that have gone on to play in the top divisions. Before the CFA, they were one of the highest, they had the highest number of players output from their academy back in the day, and now more so, seeing the players come through, but also from where they've gone on to, maybe made in transfer sales, the numbers are massive. So I think it's kind of, we're reaping the rewards on the pitch and off the pitch as well. We're Not Really Here with me, Cel Spellman, Paul Dickov, Shaun Wright-Phillips and Richard Dunne. We are just under 10 minutes from kickoff at the Etihad Stadium. Before we get to that though, today marked a very special day. It was the 10th anniversary of a celebration that I know we all know so well here at Manchester City. It is the Poznan. Check this out.
If there's one group of fans who can use football for having a laugh and being slightly irreverent, it's Manchester City fans. We played Poznan in the Europa League.
They just sort of took over the atmosphere in the ground. There was that many of them.
All of the away fans just turned around and started jumping backwards.
It just sort of took off from there, and then we decided, I think every time we scored a goal, we'd do a Poznan.
It was at a time where, even though we were starting to do well, as a fan base, we still didn't take ourselves very seriously at the time. The big one that season was definitely the FA Cup semi-final.
Me and my brother claim that we started the Poznan at Wembley.
We just turned around and did a Poznan, which again was a City thing to do.
It's just, if you're a City fan, you just get it. It's just part of City fandom, and the Poznan just became a part of that.
The City fans doing the Poznan, and this stand is shaking.
So, Story of the Poznan is available on City Plus. I think it's around 15-20 minutes, and it is well worth your time. And while you're on there as well, check out the other documentaries. One being Made in Belgium, which is a focus around Kevin De Bruyne, all available on City Plus. And I must say, I've got a lot of fond memories of doing the Poznan. But it wasn't. I just found sometimes you'd almost have a crick in your neck because you'd be loving it, but going, I don't want to miss the next goal. Sean
was fine.
Sean, but you were actually playing in the game when the Poznan first came about. Are you aware of it as players, you know, of these kind of things happening in the stands, or do you have that tunnel vision where you're just focused on the pitch?
I wouldn't necessarily say you're not aware of it or that you are aware of it. Like, I saw it happening, but for me, I just only cared about the game. That was just something that would have been a conversation afterwards.
I love the idea maybe of you all seeing it and going, wow, what, were we doing something wrong here that the guys don't want to watch us play anymore, do you know what I mean?
Now, we used to do that more in League One, but it wasn't. They just used to turn their back. They couldn't bear watch some of the football that was going on.
I'm sure my dad and then my granddad will be watching going, that was never the case. They stood and watched till the end. It was always worth the watch. Now, if you've been watching throughout the whole show, you're probably wondering, what is this behind us? Well, this is something pretty special. It is a beautiful painting of our team of the decade, and it features a whole host of faces that have kind of brought us the success we've enjoyed over the last 10 years. I mean, we were looking at it before, Paul, and it is it really is even better, I think, in person than probably what you're seeing on screen.
Yeah, it is a fantastic bit of work, and look at all the legends that are on there, and I like how, you know, in the fans, you can spot all the celebrity City fans in there as well, and obviously Pep, Manuel and Roberto down the bottom, but fantastic piece of artwork.
Really beautiful. Didn't get a shout though for being in the fans in the back there, Paul. I was looking for myself, thinking I might have made the cut. Didn't.
You'll be in the next one.
Thank you, Paul. I also thought as well, actually, what would be really lovely if they were kind of to do the decade previous to this as well, and then you could almost go through each City team along the way. I think it would be a really beautiful in kind of someone's house. Well, my house actually. Of course, we've got Tevez there. I'm actually going to try and see if we can set out this season. This is going to be a big ask. I'm looking. We're going to have to go all over the world. If we could get that signed by each player on there, that would be unbelievable. So that is our City team of the decade. And I'm trying to... Jamie actually was the painter who painted that, so it's a really beautiful piece, and thank you to Jamie as well. You can check that out on the City website. So, not far away from kick-off, you know what's coming next, gentlemen. It is prediction time. The prediction guru, Carl Walker, is not here, so I feel it's, you know, not as much pressure this week. Sean, we'll begin with you. What are you thinking for tonight?
I'm going for 3-0 City.
Straight up. Okay, do you want to throw a goal scorer on there?
Yeah, I did last time, didn't I?
Yeah.
I got it right as well, right?
You did get it right. Yeah.
I'm going to say Sergio Aguero, Sterling, and I think Mahrez is going to get one today.
Lovely, okay. Paul, front three. Paul?
Yeah, I'll go 4-0.
4-0.
Aguero hat-trick.
Okay, 4-0. If that really does come off, Carl Walker's never coming back on the show. That's it. You have to come back. Richard, what about yourself?
I'll go 2-0 then, and Diaz to score.
Diaz to score.
Centre half union there.
Hey, that's so nice and varied. As we kind of approach this game, then, what do you want to see from City? I think it's going to be a slightly different approach to the Arsenal game. For your money, Paul, what do you think it'll be?
Look, we all know we'll have lots of possession. It's just you know, from what we've seen in the games already in the Premier League, is just maybe putting our chances away. You know, we've created so many chances, and that's why I'm saying with Sergio tonight, you know, if we create the chances that we have done in previous games, that's why I think he can get his hat-trick tonight.
We've mentioned, and I think we did the last time for the Lyon game, Richard, about those little kind of mistakes, those fine margins that really can tip the game in a balance. Is there anything you can do going into a game to try and alleviate them, or is it just kind of absolute focus and concentration?
Yeah, it's just making sure the focus is there when you're on the pitch. I think for City, we've probably, you look back to that Lyon game and there was errors in the game, and there was obviously missed chances and stuff like that. So tonight it's about, we know we can score goals, we know we can create chances. It's about making sure that we're difficult to beat and we're difficult to break down. And yeah, I think if you can start that early on in the group stage, it bodes well for the rest of the tournament.
Wonderful stuff, gentlemen. Absolute pleasure as always. Thank you so much to you, Shaun. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Richard. Now, we have got Michael Brown joining Alistair Mann for commentary of our game against Porto. And then remember, you can come back to us on We're Not Really Here at half-time and full-time. So if you're on City Plus, the game is exclusively on there with Ali Mann and Michael Brown. And come join us at half-time and full-time. Go get yourself a brew. Go get yourself ready as we take on Porto in our opening group game of our Champions League campaign 2020. Come on, City.
Brilliant from Gabriel Jesus. Special players provide special moments.
He's always watch out for the blonde kid.
No dancing, no dancing. No dancing.